Welcome to our video on the running back dead zone is alive. This is a follow-up on our prior video called The Running Back Dead Zone is Dead. On this episode, I'm going to try to make a convincing argument as to why there still is a dead zone. And we're going to do that by looking at two factors. Number one, the dead zone is defined as rounds 3 through 6 traditionally. So we're going to be looking at rounds 3 through 6 and comparing the biggest dead zone year, the year with Mike Davis, to this year's data. And then we'll also be looking at last year's data and see if we could say there was a dead zone last year as well. And I think we'll make a rather convincing argument that the dead zone is alive. Number one, when it comes to the dead zone, it's not always saying that every single player is going to be bad. It's just saying that in general, those players might be bad picks relative to other positions on a percentage basis. And so we can't look at any individual player or even maybe the group as a whole always and say, well, it's definitely proven there's a dead zone, but we're going to do our best to do that today. So, number one, let's pull up some data or just some draft information on the year that we had Mike Davis, which was a couple of years ago. And you can see here that rounds 3 through 6, there are 12 running backs in the dead zone. And a lot of them didn't do good that year. And, that's why people started talking about it. Now, you'd think if the running back dead zone was dead, there'd be less running backs in that zone right now. And maybe more either earlier or more later. But in fact, when we go and look at the running backs right now that are in rounds 3 through 6, you can see there's actually 13 right now today. So there's actually one more running back in the dead zone today than there was the biggest year of the dead zone. If that doesn't tell you that maybe there's a dead zone coming back again, I don't know what would. One thing you might say is, well, are we getting smarter and these running backs that are being pulled up aren't dead zone running backs? So what I did was I went back to some 2025 data. This data wasn't like the last ADP data. In fact, it was maybe partially in the middle of the drafting season. So it's not perfect, but it's what I could find relatively easily. And these players highlighted were the running backs that were in the dead zone last year. Now, of course, again, this probably changed a little bit as we get further along in the year and things like that, but these are the ones that I found. And these are underdog, it looks like, on this side. In fact, I got some DraftKings stuff over here, but we're going to look at underdog right now. And you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 running backs in the dead zone last year. One more than what's in there right now, and two more than what we had in 2000. The year actually escapes me right now, but the year that Mike Davis was in the dead zone. I get this data also, a little hard to pull, so I can't guarantee it being perfectly perfect, but it's pretty accurate. Now, if we go again and look at our 2025 data, logic might say that, well, this is the dead zone. Are we getting better at the dead zone? And do these players maybe not qualify as dead zone backs, meaning they did better than expected, even though they were drafted where they were drafted? And we can actually see here that Josh Jacobs was a disappointment. Chase Brown was a disappointment. Breece Hall was a disappointment. James Cook did great. And Kyrie Williams was okay. Omarion Hampton was a disappointment. Chuba Hubbard was a disappointment. Kenneth Walker was a disappointment. Joe Mixon was a disappointment. Alvin Kamara was a disappointment. RJ Harvey was a disappointment. Trevion Henderson was a disappointment. James Conner was a disappointment. And David Montgomery was a disappointment. So 12 out of the 14 running backs in this area were disappointments. That is a pretty huge clip of running backs being a disappointment in the dead zone. So those are two reasons why the dead zone is alive and well. There's more running backs here than in the past. And even if you look at last year's data, we're no better at predicting if those running backs belong there or not. Be cautious of who you're drafting in the dead zone when you're drafting players in the dead zone and your other opportunities you may be missing out on in the dead zone. We might have a follow up to think about what we can do instead. But let me know what you think. Is the running back dead zone alive or dead? See you on the next one. Peace.